now. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's information session regarding the application to amend the City of Ottawa zoning bylaw at 788 March Road. This meeting is being hosted by the Councillor's Office. Before we begin, a brief land acknowledgement. Ottawa is built on unceded Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. La ville d'Ottawa rend hommage au peuple et au territoire de la nation Anishinaabe Algonquine. La ville d'Ottawa rend hommage à toutes les Premières Nations, à tous les Inuits et à tous les Métis, de même qu'aux précieuses contributions passées et présentes à cette terre. Tonight's meeting will proceed as follows. We begin with opening remarks from your ward councillor, Kathy Curry. Then we will turn to a presentation from the applicant. The presentation will be led by Nico Church from Fotenn Planning and Design. He's joined by architects Chris Ilg and Naomi Hamel from Neuf Architectes. They're joined by Mohamed and Mahmoud El-Koury, representing their client SINA. Following the presentation, the floor will open to questions from the public. Individuals wishing to ask a question can use the raise hand function or submit questions in the chat to me. Once queued, you will be prompted to unmute yourselves and given 3 minutes to formulate and ask a question. I will raise my hand at 1 minute and verbally notify you at 30 seconds. You can also ask questions through the comment section. One final housekeeping note before I pass it over to Councillor Curry. Some residents have inquired about the absence of the application from the City of Ottawa's DevApp webpage. This is an unintended consequence of recent provincial legislative changes to the Planning Act. Bill 109 amends the statutorily required timelines within which municipalities must reach decisions on applications, amending its zoning bylaw or official plan or seeking site plan approval. Applications not decided upon within those timelines are subject to a graduated application fee refund. In response, Ottawa City Council amended its pre-consultation bylaw last year and now advises that consultation be commenced in the pre-consultation stage, which explains why no documents are yet available on the DevApp's webpage. In short, the presentation before you today has not yet been formally submitted and remains subject to change. What is presented is entirely discretionary and a gesture of good faith by the applicant. So I'll pass it over to Councillor Curry and then to Nico when he's ready.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and thank you everybody for attending tonight. And thank you very much to all of the developers and your crew and experts here who can answer some questions. As Andrew outlined, it's a little bit of a new world that we live in, well, in many respects. However, in this world, it's a little bit new in that normally we would have staff here. Normally there would be information up on DevApps, but as Andrew outlined, thank you very much for explaining that, Andrew. It's hard for people to wrap their heads around. It is a different process now, and but we are very thankful to all the developers and all of your experts for coming tonight to do this consultation. As many of you know, I'm looking at who's on this call. You know that there were 2 other applications on this piece of property. And that history will be shared with you tonight in the presentation so you can understand better what has happened here historically and what is presented now. But anyways, we are, as Andrew said, recording this, so our planning staff will watch this, but Andrew is also going to create a report. I think Andrew noted that to give our staff as well, just a as we heard it report in terms of the comments and questions. So know that what you say here tonight, questions you ask, we'll eventually get to our planner so she can have an idea of what took place, even though staff don't have to be here. All right, so without further ado, I'll pass it over to the developers and we'll look forward to see what is proposed.
So Nico, to you, I know you want to go from there.
Sure. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Councillor. We do appreciate the opportunity to consult with your community tonight on 788 March Road. I'll just make a quick little edit to Andrew's opening statement. Andrew mentioned that this was a proposed zoning bylaw amendment. This is just for site plan control. We are seeking a couple of minor variances. So there is some relief from the zoning that's being sought, and we'll speak to that. but it's not a full zoning bylaw amendment that we're looking at. So my name is Nico Church. I'm a senior planner with Fotenn. And Andrew mentioned that we also have our architects from Neuf on the call. We have Armin Maddie from Parsons, who is a transportation consultant. We also have the development team from SINA. So SINA is a Montreal-based developer. We have Mohamed El-Koury. Mo, do you want to speak a little bit to SINA? Just introduce yourselves.
Absolutely. So good evening, everybody. My name is Mo El-Koury. I have my two partners on the line as well, Charles Lemire and Mahmoud El-Koury. We're a developer contractor. We specialize in residential and industrial developments. We are based in Montreal. We started slowly expanding, and we saw the beautiful opportunity for the development in Kanata, a beautiful area, a lot of potential to do something that's beautiful and according to our standard. So we're here tonight, as Nico said, to present our project.
Thank you, Mo.
To the committee. Thank you.
So I'll proceed with the actual presentation. Can everyone? I just shared my screen. It's good. Okay, perfect.
You're good.
Okay, thank you. So again, this is for 788 March Road. The site is located at the eastern corner of Klondike Road and March Road in Kanata North. So it's located across from the March House Heritage Building, as well as the Klondike Crossing Shopping Plaza. That's where you have a Shoppers Drug Mart, you have a TD Bank, among a few other businesses. The property itself has an area of just over 12,200 square meters, with frontages of 127 meters along March Road and about 83 meters along Klondike Road to the north. Shirley's Brook straddles the eastern portion of the property, which does slope down quite a bit from March Road to the creek. So the high point of the property is along March Road, and it slopes down towards Shirley's Brook. The site is currently vacant, and it's partially excavated as a result of a previous development approval, which Councillor Curry hinted at. So the site has a long application history. It's spanned quite a few years and 3 councillors in your ward. So an initial site plan control application was submitted in August 2018 for 6-story mid-rise apartment building. We had a presentation at Town Hall with Councillor Wilkinson at the time in September 2018. The developer that owned the project at the time made some revisions, and in May 2020 submitted a revised application for a 4-story design, and a little over a year later received approval for that design. So those 4 stories, 92 dwelling units. SINA has since purchased the project, and they're now seeking approval for the original 6-story design that was contemplated, with some design modifications. So we've started the pre-application consultation process with the city. As Andrew noted, the city is now front-loading the pre-consultation process, so that all major comments by the city can be resolved prior to formal site plan control circulation and eventual decision by city staff. So it's a phased pre-consultation process, and we provided a submission for a phase 3 pre-consultation in November of last year. We just recently received comments, and we're working to address those in a resubmission that we hope to provide shortly. And as I mentioned, we will also be submitting a minor variance application at a time where we're relatively comfortable with the design, which we feel we're quite comfortable right now, and city staff do seem to be supportive of the direction that we're undertaking. So I'll pass it over to Chris Ilg. He's the architect at Neuf, to speak a little bit more to the proposed development. And Chris, feel free to let me know when you'd like me to move forward or back slides.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Nico, and Hello, everyone. So yeah, as Nico said, the base of this design was proposed in 2018. So the large design moves are the same as what you may have seen if you did see it in 2018. So off of March Road, we do have an entry that comes in that goes to some surface parking. That's would be largely visitor parking primarily. And then off of Klondike is an entrance to the garage. So those are the two main access points to the property. The buildings are split up into two main volumes. Originally was to be phased, but in the current approach, it's going to be built all together. But that also helps to break up the the masses on the site. So we do have most of the underground parking in 2 levels, and we do have a setback from the creek that you would have seen if you had seen some of the previous projects, with a multi-use path that will be built along the creek. So you can go to the next slide. So the view here we see from Klondike. So this would be the multi-use path, the entry to the parking for the residents. We see the both buildings are 6 stories. What we've done with the design, if you would have seen the previous, is we've simplified a bit, a little bit more contemporary look. We're still drawing from the Marsh House, which is just to the right on the slide. So the Marsh House has some very nice stone. It's a tan sort of color, so we've tried to incorporate a more modern version of that material into the project to pay homage to the historical building. And in between that, we've emphasized with some white volumes to create some contrast, but also to create a sense of scale that fits with the neighborhood. You can go to the next. The way the design is set up it's actually on the P1 level. We have some amenity spaces which face the creek. So here you see the windows where the residents would have their pool and their lounge that would have a lot of glass facing out to the creek and the multi-use path. So that would be 1 level down from Marsh Road on the other side. And this courtyard in the back would be the parking. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Nico. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's good. And then this is a view at the entry from Marsh Road. So we have each building has its own entry, but coming off of that access drive that leads back to the surface parking. Obviously, we would have some nice landscaping along Marsh Road, and the entrance is set back a little bit. Here you can see the white volumes that create the facade on Marsh Road to create a sense of scale and massing on Marsh Road to fit within some of the other properties that are already built. We do incorporate some more continuous balconies to connect the building. The other materials are a wood look. That's the darker color that you see here, to give a bit of a Scandinavian contemporary feel to the building.
And here just a couple other renderings of the project. So this is again from March Road, and this is from the corner of March and Klondike. Oh, Chris, your hand is up.
You accidentally muted yourself, right? Okay.
I sorry, I just had to cough for a second. Sorry about that, everyone.
I didn't know if you were done or not.
No, I just had to cough. I didn't want to cough, but sorry. So yeah, so the black material is in this case a sort of background that emphasizes again the vertical volumes, the white volumes across the way. We do have a canopy that emphasizes the entry in the middle and connects the 2 buildings on the side. We can go to the next. Yeah, and I think as you were saying, Nico, this would be the corner view. We do have a 45-degree angle there so that faces the corner and kind of emphasizes the corner of Klondike and Marsh Road.
Great, thank you, Chris. So in terms of the applicable policies for this site. So it's designated Main Street corridor within the suburban transect. So the suburban transect comprises neighborhoods within the urban boundary, but that are located outside of the Greenbelt. So think of Kanata, Stittsville, Barrhaven, Riverside South, Orleans, and the like. The suburban transect allows for mid-rise building heights along Main Street corridors. Mid-rise is up to 9 stories. It can be high-rise, so over 10 stories, where there can be a suitable transition to abutting low-rise areas. So in terms of permitted building heights, the 6-story height that we're proposing here is permitted by the official plans policies. The corridor designation applies to bands of land along specified streets whose planned function combines higher density of development, a greater degree of mixed uses, and a higher level of street transit service than abutting neighborhoods. The policies also speak to corner lots where they face a Main Street corridor as well as a side street to address the corridor. So to have development be facing towards the corridor is really the main frontage, if you will. It's also important to note that this site is abutting a future bus rapid transit station that would run along March Road. The timing of the construction of that corridor is to be determined, and the city is in the midst of undertaking a new transportation master plan after it finalized a new official plan. And that's going to be in place most likely sometime in 2025. So it's ongoing, but generally speaking, greater density is encouraged in proximity to rapid transit stations, whether it's bus, rapid transit, or LRT. In terms of the zoning, it's designated general mixed use in the zoning bylaw, which permits a wide variety of commercial and residential uses. It does permit the mid-rise apartment use that we're seeking. And right now, the existing maximum building height is 18 meters, which does allow for mid-rise buildings. I'll get to it in a second. We are seeking a variance to the building height, but it would still be within the mid-rise category. So the minor variances that we're looking for, the first is a minimum rear yard setback reduction from 3 meters to 7.5 meters. So the condition in this particular yard here, you have Klondike here and March at the bottom. The zoning recognizes Klondike Road as the front lot line. The front lot line is, in most cases in the city, where a property abuts a public street for the shortest the shortest distance. So in this case, it's Klondike, but functionally the site is oriented along March Road. And as I just mentioned, the official plan policies speak to development, making sure that it addresses Main Street corridors and be oriented in that fashion. So we feel that to orient the building in this direction, where there is a pinch point in the rear yard setback, functionally, it's more of an interior side yard setback, which in the general mixed use zone would be 3 meters. It's also important to note that the abutting property to the southeast at 762 March Road, the condition right beside 788 March is characterized by a surface parking lot and a side building facade that has very few windows. So we feel as though the impacts to that property would be quite minor. The second variance that we're looking to seek approval for is for building height increase from 18 meters to 21.2 meters. This is for 2 reasons. Firstly, is partly to have more comfortable floor to ceiling heights, to have for SINA to be able to provide a better product for future residents of the area. It's also partly due to significant grade changes. So as I mentioned earlier, the property slopes down towards Shirley's Brook, and building height per the zoning is calculated using the average finished grade of all building walls. So for instance, you do have to take the finished grade from the back of the building over here which comes down much lower because of Shirley's Brook and how the property slopes down. And so from March Road, the building would only be about 19.5 meters. With the pretty significant topography here, we'd be looking at 21.2 meters. Now, it's important to keep in mind the way that the site is oriented. Shadowing impacts, generally speaking, are towards the north because the sun is to the south of us. So largely shadowing impacts would be towards Shirley's Brook, away from existing residences. So here's a couple of renderings. Again, this is showing the relationship of the proposed development to the abutting property to the southeast at 762 March Road. You can see the surface parking lot. There is this one building further to the rear of the site, but again, it might be a little bit hard to see, but this side facade has very little glazing. So we feel privacy impacts would be quite low here. And this is a bird's eye view of the development, again, seeing the relationship to the surrounding context. And as I mentioned earlier, shadowing would be towards the north, so towards Shirley's Brook, and generally low density uses, some that might be rural residential in character, but we feel the impacts here are not overly pronounced. So with that in mind, that's the end of our presentation, but we are happy to listen to and address your concerns and consider what you might have to say tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. So we'll open it up. We'll open the floor up to questions. For those of you that may have, hi, Neil, I see you. For those of you that may have logged on a little bit late, the presentation has just been complete. As I noted earlier, you're welcome to ask questions either by raising your hand using the raise hand function or by submitting them in the chat. I will ask them if you submit them in the chat. So over to you, Neil.
Okay. Am I coming through loud and clear?
Yes.
Okay. So one thing that I do know is the study for the bus rapid transit. It goes back a long way. It was done in, I believe, 2013 was the original date that it was done. And at this point, I guess a question that I don't know is necessarily true or will be true if and when it ever gets approved is whether it's going to be something that goes down the median and have the median as your actual pickup and drop off point, meaning the buses are going straight down the middle, because that's a really radical change to March Road. That's going to be very disruptive in terms of renovations as opposed to having buses go up the side. And that would include, there's certainly a lot of discussion of is how much space is going to be available with the buildings now being put on both sides of March Road. The intention certainly was to add an additional lane on both sides because the median is not exactly 2 buses wide. So either you're taking away some of the road width in terms of vehicle, or you're going to be asking for additional space. And I know that much of March Road does have additional space on either side, but it's not clear at that point, given the location of the building, that there's sufficient room.
Mm-hmm. So that is a good question, and unfortunately, I can't provide you with a full response because it really does depend how the design of this BRT corridor will evolve, particularly with the new transportation master plan coming in line. So I think the intention is for it to be at grade. I will note the March Road right-of-way width at this location is 52 meters. Which is a very wide right-of-way width, in my opinion, one of the widest in the city. And I mean, it does. You do see it with March Road nowadays. It functionally operates as a highway these days. I don't think that's necessarily how the city wants to see March Road in the future. So again, I can't speak to specific design changes and whether or not some travel lanes will be taken out by some bus rapid transit lanes. what I can say is in our discussions with city staff, they haven't identified a need for further rights of way protection, because they could ask for that. They could ask for us to convey land. They haven't done so, and at this time, it's not borne in the policies for them to ask for additional land from this particular property.
Fair enough, thank you.
Anything else on your end, Neil?
No, not at this point.
You're good? Okay, thank you. So yeah, Marianne Wilkinson, up to you.
Do you get it unmuted?
You're good. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Just to answer Neil, we actually did do the study of the March Road Transitway some years ago, and it is in the media in that study. Now they could do a new study and change it, obviously, but the road has been designed to have it go that way, and it does lead to some problems with lane measures and ducts. That was an issue that we were dealing with at the time, and it's never been resolved. Couple of questions that I have. You're going back down to 3-meter setbacks from the road, I guess. I looked at this picture you showed of the long March Road with some fairly good sized trees, and 3 meters is really not enough for a good sized tree. How are you going to handle the landscaping to make it? Because Kanata is well known for its landscaping, as you know.
So certainly, one thing that that will be a big plus is the amount of setback that we're providing from Shirley's Brook. So we'll be providing a 30-meter setback from the high water mark. So a lot of landscaping will be provided on site. I can appreciate that much of that will perhaps be shielded from the actual right of way, but we are proposing a pathway that would run along the rear of the property. So future neighborhood residents will be able to enjoy obviously the existing vegetation. We'll see if the city wants us to provide additional plantings within that actual setback or nearby. That's certainly something that we're taking a close look at, because a landscape plan will be required as part of part of this development.
It's not there now, so it's hard to comment on. And I take it the pathway will connect to the existing path that was put behind the other properties, because it goes up all the way to the co-op.
Yeah, that would be yeah.
That's I'm actually a member of the church that owns that land. The co-op's on part of our church property, so I've always been very interested in what goes on in this particular property.
Mm-hmm.
You have the 30-meter setback, which is required. The other side of the creek was always going to be kept as a natural state. Is that still the case? And how is it being protected on the east side of the creek?
Right. I can't specifically speak to it because it's I don't know if there are any private development proposals. I'm not aware of any public development proposals. Certainly the city does require, they have very strong language requiring protection along natural water courses. So at the very least, I would say 30 meters from the high water mark on the eastern side of Shirley's Brook, at the very least. And again, I can't speak to.
I remember quite correctly on when Mento did their development, they had to go back for the floodplain area, not just 30-meter, but the floodplain. On that, I'm not sure if that wasn't deeded to the city. It's not got the path in it, it's kept in natural state. But I think there is some issue. There is quite a large floodplain comes on that little creek, because it doesn't have a lot of capacity within the creek itself.
Right.
The church property has a huge area that's under floodplain for one area.
And certainly that's something that we're working with the city to ensure that our property does provide enough of a setback for the dwelling units from the floodplain. So for sure that is on our radar.
Thanks, Marianne. So I'll pass it right off to Lucas, and I'll come right back to you if you have anything outstanding, Marianne. So to Cliff Wardle, please go ahead.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Thank you. Parking, how many spots will there be for the units? How many units are there and how many parking spots?
So there's 196 dwelling units that we're proposing. And we're proposing 275 parking spaces. So the current zoning requirements are for 1.2 parking spaces per dwelling unit for residential parking and 0.2 spaces per dwelling unit for visitor parking. So that's the it is the highest in the city. In terms of the breakdown between residential and visitor, that would be 236 resident spaces and 39 visitor spaces. So we are proposing to meet the requirements for parking here.
Thank you. That's very responsible. Good. Next question is, or something I just wanted to mention about the creek. Is there a chance that the creek could become polluted from this?
So when we do, particularly for site plan control, when we go through this application process, it's a process that allows the city to require orderly, efficient, and safe development. And so there are a number of studies that we have to prepare, a number of drawings that we have to prepare, and the developer, when they proceed with construction, will have to abide by a long list of conditions that will be registered on title. And so, for instance, there will even be erosion and sediment control plans for when there is ongoing construction to ensure that there are as few impacts as possible to the creek. So we've also had an environmental impact study done that does measure the impacts of the development on the creek. And the conclusions seem to be that certainly with respect to providing a 30-meter setback, the impacts should be within the acceptable guidelines.
That's great. Thank you very much. Last question is regarding transit and BRT. I think a lot of people are very optimistic there's going to be a BRT. It's currently unfunded as part of phase 3, and recent councillors and recent studies have found that it's not economically advantageous to actually have an LRT phase 3. Now, no doubt our councillors and others will try to come up with a better way for transit here. But with regards to transit, how many trips are you envisaging for people in this development per day?
So we do have Armin Maddie from Parsons. Armin, sorry to put you on the spot right away. Would you be able to answer that question?
Hi, Nico. Thanks for that question. So are you assuming part of the development? Sorry, just to clarify the question.
Essentially, how many trips do you envisage a day of people using transit from this development?
Yeah, so we assumed part of our study about 20%, and that's taken from cities' information in terms of modal split. Understanding that there is no currently BRT there, but that might increase if BRT at some point comes in the future, which we don't have a date for. But it was around 20%.
Okay, so that's around 160. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. So Lucas, I'll pass it over to you. You sent me a question in the chat, but I propose you could just ask it now.
Yeah, first up, I guess with what I said in the chat first was, is there any projected timeline for when that walkway along Shirley's Brook that was mentioned during the presentation that would be built? If that's something that can be predicted. Next thing I was wondering, considering it's a flat roof from the renderings, would the developer eventually be willing to put solar panels or a green roof to make a kind of fill in that space or with the environmental aspect, and I think that might be a good thing for their objectives and stuff like that for environmental footprint. And I was wondering, Andrew, you were mentioning about with this there's no dev app, so like how is someone able to really look at what the developer is proposing here, because this is new, so it doesn't seem, I don't know if about it's fair would be the word, but it's kind of makes it in the dark for residents, so it's yeah.
So I'll try to answer those questions one by one. With respect to the estimated time of construction of the pathway, I know SINA is hoping to get construction started this year. I assume, Mo, do you want to speak to that a little bit more? And you're on mute.
Oh, you have to unmute him 1 second here. There you go.
Okay, Lucas, thank you for the questions. I'll answer the first two. So as for the path, it will be done during the construction work. We're hoping to start construction in 2024, deliver late 2025. But for everybody's safety, we won't be able to open the pathway until the job site has been complete and has been delivered. So I would say hopefully end of 2025. As for the roof is flat. Just to explain to you a bit about our building, we're building it to be 40% efficient. So we're going to make the building as efficient as possible. Therefore, the roof space is utilized for a lot of the mechanical systems that are used in the property. So therefore, we can't have that much space to create a green roof on top of these buildings, unfortunately. However, we are creating a lot of green space, and as Nico mentioned earlier, I know you guys have not seen the landscape plans yet, but we've put a lot of effort and we've added more to what's required in terms of landscaping. So a lot of the area on the roof will be utilized for the machinery that we need for mechanical, and this machinery is going to be much more efficient than standard equipment. So I mean, the basic is to put something on balconies as cheap as possible. That is not our target. Our target is to have an efficient system, so therefore we need the roof for it. But like I said, more landscape will be added to create that greenery.
Thank you. Yeah. Can I ask one quick question about with landscaping regarding like with climate change and unpredictability of water, of rainfall? Is it I would assume that there's gonna be some maintenance plan for your company will organize for the property, but it just because to make sure all these plants survive, right? Because you can't rely on natural rain for it to survive, because it would be a shame to have all these plants die and not survive from like they need sufficient water for the to grow and stuff like that. So it just if to have like a certain period of time to have them grow water periodically to they don't dry up in hot weather and stuff like that.
Absolutely, we're gonna have to have a landscape maintenance program that's put in place for all our property management. We need to make sure that it's not excessive, so we're not being abusive in watering. But yes, it has to be put in place and to maintain our building. I mean, we're going to be owner occupiers. We have a pride of ownership. You know, we need to make sure that it stays to the standard we want it to be. So absolutely, we need to maintain the landscape. And also, it would be a shame with such beautiful views for all our tenants on the creek and all that beautiful greenery for it not to be maintained. So it is a top priority for us.
And so that walkway is going to be built by you near the Shirley Brook, not the city.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
If I can just add a couple. Sorry, so just add a couple of small things to what Mohamed shared. So we do have a little bit of green roof when it's lower down and we don't have mechanical. So we do have some green roof where we can. On the top for instead of the green roof, we would be doing reflective roof, so to reduce heat island effect. In addition to, as Mo already mentioned, the 40% above the standard code for the performance. And I don't know if you mentioned that, Nico, but we do have to get a permit from Mississippi Valley because we're adjacent to the river. So we have the 1 to 100 floodplain that we need to respect for in terms of resiliency, which I think what Luca was mentioning in terms of flood and everything. So we are protected for that, and we'll have that permit to make sure everything is in line with all those regulations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chris.
Since I already grabbed the mic, I'll just go back to just to give a little bit of precision on the setback for the landscape, because it was mentioned about 3 meters. The 3 meters is really a pinch point at the back of the property. The setback at the front is closer to 6 on that side. So we do have a bit more, but we're asking for it because of that pinch point. And when we're along March Road, it's closer to 5 or 5.5 meters of landscaping for the trees that we see in the rendering that would be more visible along March Road.
Yeah, so just pulling up the plan here, the 3 meter pinch point is at this corner of the property. Closer to here is much wider, and Chris, as you mentioned, the property line is this darker gray line here, but there's quite a bit of space within the public right-of-way to provide greater planting space. I know that there was one other question that Lucas had with respect to the application process. I forget if it was Andrew or Councillor Curry who mentioned that we're all still wrapping our heads around it. I work in planning and I'm still wrapping my head around it, and it's honestly a frustrating process, because it's useful for us to get public feedback sooner rather than later as well. So there is still a public circulation period. Once the site plan control application is deemed complete by city staff, then there is a 60-day turnaround between a notice of completion and approval by the city with all the conditions that they'll impose. So within those 60 days, there is an opportunity for the public to comment, and those all those application materials should be posted on DevApps at that time. I'll also note that because we are seeking minor variances, that will be an application to the Committee of Adjustment, and that's an opportunity for members of the public to voice their thoughts, their comments on those particular variances that we're seeking. So that's another way of being involved with this project. And I've shared the presentation slides with Andrew, and so if there are any questions that you have, you can communicate with Andrew, and you guys can feel free to post it on your councillor's website. So we don't want to be in a position where we're hiding things from you guys. Unfortunately, with the new application process, it is quite difficult to have meaningful public consultation. But certainly I do feel that there are still ways for members of the public to provide feedback on our application.
Yeah, exactly. I second all of that. So were we to follow the provincially set out process, this meeting would have been held within a 60-day timeline by when staff would have had to respond or make a decision on the application. So it's kind of a compromise where we are holding the presentation or the information session ahead of the actual application, though the documents are not necessarily public at this time. Though, as Nico shared, they did make it public to us. They did share it with us earlier today and allow us to share it with whoever asks. So, to Marianne, back
Roger.
to you.
I just a couple other, I wanted to have some questions about the mix of apartments. We're getting an awful lot of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments in Canada, and we have people who have children, sometimes teenagers, who are okay in apartments, but they want to have separate units. I know the building I'm in now has a couple of 3-bedroom units for people, and some of them have, like one person has a disabled child that's an adult now, but they need a special, this extra space, and there are those needs. And you said they said there was 196 units, but I don't know what type of units they are and what size they are. Is that known yet?
Yeah, there is a proposed bedroom count. And I have it up on an extra slide that I had prepared just in case this question was going to come up. So we have, again, a total of 196 units. So roughly half of that will be 1 bedroom or 1 bedroom plus den. You also have a total of 87 units that'll be 2 bedroom units or 2 bedroom plus den. And you also have 12 3-bedroom units. I'll note that this proposed unit breakdown is it does meet the targets that the city is looking for along certain intensification areas in the city, including Main Street corridor.
So the problem is that we're getting mostly apartments and not very many family homes being built anymore, and that's going to have a problem probably in the long run. But I'm glad to see you've got some 3-bedroom ones in there because I think they are needed. And but with it being close to a lot of amenities there, including schools, the elementary school is just a short walking distance from there. And the other question I had was on the corner. When you go around the corner onto Klondike, you're going to almost immediately be going into where the parking garage is. And is there any kind of a pull off to the side at that point so that if vehicles are coming around, they don't get suddenly there's a car slowed right down in front of them going into the parking garage?
So certainly there is here I have
The corner looked odd to me when I looked at it on the site. That's what I
on the site plan, it doesn't show you the actual distance, but there's quite a fair distance to the turn of the garage to make sure that there's no backup of any cars. Give you enough time to see traffic. On the plan, obviously it looks small, but in real life it's completely in the back of the building, which is a couple of 100 feet. So it gives you enough distance. And again, we have Armin with us, and we did a turnaround study in the project to make sure that the radius and the distances are safe and give drivers coming in and out enough time to be able to see oncoming traffic, to be able to come on safely.
And is that thing on the side there where you put the things from the garbage when they come to pick them up? Or I know in our apartment that's how they do it. So they have the big bins. Is that what that thing is on the side along Klondike? It's oddly.
It's at the end of the driveway. It's not on the street.
Yeah, it'll be. I don't know if you can see my cursor. It'll be just over here. What you see here is the existing bus stop. That'll be proposed to be relocated over here.
So just add that
Are you making the road? Are you doing that piece of Klondike into a finished urban road on your side as part of your work? Because Klondike hasn't been urbanized yet in that respect.
That's it's correct that it hasn't been urbanized yet. Obviously, as part of this application, we do need to have an approved transportation impact assessment in place. Armin, are you aware of any requirement here to urbanize the actual roadway along Klondike here?
Just on your side. I know I got them to put it into the development charge bylaw because we had to have some way of developing that road sometime. So it should be in the DC now, but I don't know if it still is or not.
Sorry, Chris wanted to intervene a moment ago.
No, I was just going to add that the access to the parking is as far back as we can push because we have a 30-meter setback from the creek. It's as far as
I realized that. It's just a case of whether it was a bit wider there so that the car coming around could get around them as they're turning in. That's what I was thinking about. And the other one is that when that road, I guess they're getting all the servicing in it now. It didn't have servicing for a long time, and the water and sewer is, I think you're getting it from March Road, but the ones further up are a problem, and that's why the net road was never built to urban standards. And so it's just between March Road and Sandhill that it's not done.
Thanks, Marianne. Let's turn to Armin, and then I'll pass it over to Neil.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. So to answer Marianne's question is, yes, that's going to be the section that you see south of on the map, south of the driveway will be urbanized. So you see sidewalks, and as well, part of the design, it will be likely brought up, the MUP probably will be brought up to the same level as the sidewalk. So yes, the short answer will be urbanized.
Okay.
So, sorry, Councilor Curry, did you have a quick intervention on that?
Yeah,
Oh.
Neil, honestly, and I don't know if your comments on the same thing, but let me just say this one thing. So Marianne, so if you go further down Klondike on the left, there's another subdivision going in there. Like they don't have an active application right now, but they're going through Ministry of Environment applications. Then on the corner right across from South March, there's a apartment building or a little townhouse unit, multi-unit thing that was just approved, right? Then we have potentially the new mosque going in there, right? So given all that's happening right there, I said to staff, can we have a conversation about Klondike? The fact that you're saying it's not been urbanized yet, it's not a great road in that whole section. There's lots going on all at the same time, generally. I mean, not simultaneously, but over the next few years. So they assured me that number one, there will be traffic studies done that will make sure that takes all that into consideration. This building here, people are going to come off March Road and they're going to get back onto March Road. So it's not a big deal, but in terms of Klondike itself, given all that's going on, staff assured me that there's going to be a study to look at whether that road needs to be done. And I said, while you're at it, like while we're in the middle of all this construction there, including the mosque to come, Klondike needs to be looked at. So all that to say, Marianne, I'll keep you posted. I'll keep everybody posted as we go down that literal and figurative road on Klondike.
Neil.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what Kathy just said, because if you look at all the access points into Kanata North, one of the problems is there's a lot of limits in terms of where you can put roads. So anybody who's starting to come down the secondary roads in from, say, Constance Bay, a lot of people coming down there. I cycle that all the time during the inclement weather. Yeah, it gets really busy. So Klondike is going to be the escape route, right? So if things get backed up somewhere, then Klondike, and it's got a lot more properties on it. Yeah, I mean, it widens out farther down, but going through that gully, it's really narrow, and there's not a lot of room. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. One comment I want to make on the slide presentation. Quite frankly, in terms of what 90% of the population, and I've attended way too many of these meetings, that's a pretty good package. If that was the level of information that you could provide and share it, whether it's on your site or somewhere else, frankly, for most people, for an initial pre-consultation, that's more than enough. The rest of the documentation, only the real geeks read it, and I won't name anybody who tells them I can't.
Thank you. We do appreciate that.
Thanks, Neil. So seeing no outstanding questions or raised hands, I'll pass it over to Councilor Curry for final remarks, unless Nico or Mohamed, you have anything first.
No, we just want to thank you again for the opportunity to have this meeting, and you have our contact information. So if there are any questions or comments that do come up, do feel free to be in touch with city planning staff that's been on this file or with us. Thank you.
So
thank you guys so much for the comments. It's really appreciated. And Neil, thank you for the kind words.
One submitted question, sorry, in the time, I missed this a minute ago. For you, Nico, along the Shirley's Brook portion, do we know how many trees will be cut?
I think it's, yeah, Mo, it's 0, right? Or as few as possible. I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
So the previous developer already did the excavation and the preparing of the landscape. So as of now, we have nothing more to remove, nothing more to add. We need to put, like we said, the barriers and the protections to make sure that the Shirley Brook is protected during our construction. But so far that there's no more for us to do.
Perfect. Yeah, that was from Lucas. Perfect. Yes, so now on to Councillor Curry for final remarks.
Thank you. So, yeah, I want to say thank you everybody for your thoughtful questions. And just as a reminder, like as we continue down the road here, and you know, it comes to actually planning committee and committee of adjustment. If you have any questions, you know, you send them to us. You can send them to the planner directly. We'll get you the answers. If you think of something you thought you wished you'd asked tonight and you didn't, we can get you the answers. And as I get more information on the traffic study, I'll send that out, obviously, in my newsletter. And when it's up on DevApps, we'll let you know, because, you know, we're in this new process now. So, you know, we will also watch for that and let people know, in probably again in my newsletter. But any questions that you still have, you know, send in and we will try to get you the answer. But thank you all very much for coming tonight. Thank you all from the whole development team here for taking the time. We really appreciate these sessions. As Neil said, that was an excellent presentation to help us understand what's happening there. So with that, everybody have a good night, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good evening.